So I was recording on my camcorder, and I went to go upload it to my computer, and my computer stops working. It won't even come on at this point. I mean, it was coming on before, but today it's weird. I went to sleep. I got a message, or download rather, and I'm like, okay. Now it's up. And I went back to sleep. And I'm back in school. Apparently, I graduated a couple of months ago. Spiritual, what do they call it? Mystery. Ugh. I don't want to see up my nose right now. Oh my God. Like mystery school type of deal. And my professor was turning off the projector. Everybody had their part in class that they had to study and be well versed in, and we were getting ready to go. And I gathered up all the papers and put them on my laptop. The same laptop I have in there. I had with me a replica of it. Something very, very similar. It had the same characteristics of the laptop I have. And I put it on the keyboard, and the laptop was open, but it was off. And my professor was like, okay, well, when are you going to study? And I said, I'm going to study as soon as I wake up. And he was like, wow, you're actually participating. You're actually taking this seriously. I said, well, yeah, because I'm one of the few in this class that is actually going to remember what they have to do when they leave. And he, kind of looked at me like, okay, yeah. So I felt like I was taking on a lot of responsibility. There was a couple of things that stuck out to me. At first, I thought it was chemistry. I knew it was a science course, a science study, and I thought it was chemistry because of the fucking long-ass words that you can't pronounce. There was one word that stuck out in particular, and it was an XY word. So in my waking state, in my awakened state, I, start to look up words that were similar, and I got xylograph, and I was like, So I looked at the meaning of xylograph, and it's an engraving in wood, which I took wood shop in school. They advised me against it when I was in high school. Don't do that. It's not on the trajectory of the profession you want to be in. And as a exploratory class, or as an extra course, it doesn't really look impressive on a college application. And I wasn't concerned about that. I was like, man, fuck that. I want to take woodshop. Something about it. Around that time, I was into my interior design shows and used to watch Bob Villa woodworking and different stuff like that as a kid. And it was something about woodshop, and that's actually where I met my first real, not real, but one of my first karmic karmic as in we had a karmic trajectory to fulfill together, and he was in that class. He was a beautiful guy, very beautiful. He was a twin, and this is leading me into my next topic, actually. So taking wood shop and knowing that I had to, not knowing why, it was important, but I knew that it would be soulfully. I knew it would be not necessarily it didn't make any logical sense, but in that class I did a xylograph wooden box with 3 compartments, and I don't know if I've spoken about, I know I've spoken about it on the channel, but it might have been one of those videos I've deleted. I actually made it for my sister, who works at a casino, And at the time she was working, she started there as a slot representative at the slot machines, but she worked her way up to, you know, supervise and now manage. She's been there quite a while. But the box had 3 compartments, and each of those wooden tops to those compartments, I engraved a 7 on it. 7 was my favorite number, and then 777s being of the casino nature, good luck, and those type of omens. And speaking of omens, today is the 6th of the 6th month, 6619, but in 6606, 13 years ago, I got that first tattoo on my back. And that's what the first video was relating to. So I have a spade, and it has like a crown with points above it. And having learned 2-hand spades at the age of 4, age of 5, from my mom, she just, you know, she was tired of playing solitaire by herself. She taught me how to play 2-hand spades so she could have someone to play with. That's my first experience with cards, when I started to address personalities to the kings, the queen, the jacks. And it didn't even dawn on me until I'd been into tarot for almost a year that I've been working with cards for so long. And I took to tarot so quickly. And you know, upon further research, I realized how intrinsically similar they were, and one is based off the other. So, yeah, I don't like it. I need some tissue or something. But yeah, so the video that's not going to be uploaded was breaking down the court cards of the spades, air, swords, mental communication suit, okay, to give viewers a better understanding when they see, to start to interpret on their own, even if they don't deal with tarot. And a lot of readers that are on now weren't drawn to tarot naturally. They picked it up from watching others and said, well, hey, I'll just get a deck and do it myself. That's why you have such an array of readers right now. Not to say that that's a bad thing, because everybody can have access to the messages and things like that. But anyway, everybody has their own reason for picking up tarot, and a lot of people, they figure, well, if they can do it, I can do it. They pick it up. They're trying to deliver messages from the collective. Some of them are messengers. Some of them have good intuition. Some people are just guessers. It depends on who you are and where you are in your journey to be able to decipher between the two. I took a break from reading because of the wrap-ups, and I was going to get into that by using the cards as kind of a descriptive show point, how the major arcana really stakes what's happening and where you are and what is associated with it. But anyway, so back to this twin thing. I'm gonna touch bases on it very quickly, just to let you know that, okay, 8 minutes in, not too bad. The revelation hit me last night, and it was like, I'm a twin, right? Say at the beginning of my journey and my awareness, or even at the beginning of my life, when I started to be attached to people romantically or anything like that, my first real romantic encounter, I think, was at like 5. I was attracted to someone. I couldn't explain it. Mind you, I was 5, right? Kindergarten, Christian school. It was weird, you know, and it wasn't a romance like grown-up romance. It was like we were 2 older people in smaller kids' bodies, so to speak. We lost contact. His mom moved him. She moved him to Georgia, and then a year and a half later, I was in Georgia. My mom linked up with his mom because he was staying with his dad in Illinois, where I was in school and living. His mom moved him back to Georgia. I ended up moving to Georgia. My mom connected with his mom through a mutual friend from Illinois, and he and I picked up where we left off, and I don't think that he remembers. He thinks he was meeting a whole new person, but we picked up where we left off in the karmic wrap-up, in the karmic cycle that we were in. Mind you, I've been on this journey since I was fucking 5. So let me just break it down. Even at 5 years old, we were doing the holding hands. There was a little kissing, but it wasn't anything sexual about our relationship, if that makes sense. It was the first feeling of being in a relationship, as far as relating to another person or having those romantic feelings without the sexual part. And even when he had spent the night at my house, or I had spent the night at his house, us laying next to each other like an old couple, it was so fucking weird, because that's not normal, okay? But it felt like home. That's the only thing it felt like home. I still remember his name to this day, but what makes it relevant is because it's reminiscent of something I'm experiencing now as a 30, what year is this? I'll be 32 this year. I forget. I stopped counting because I don't feel my age. So the next karmic partner, 12. This is around the time I dealt with some very heavy, between the beginning of my journey and the age of 12, I dealt with a lot of predatory energy, of masculine energy trying to take from me, having developed that innate sense of, mind you, my South Node is in Libra, so being partnered and marriage, partnership, even, you know, being the wife, as far as like that trophy wife shit, and being prepared to sacrifice and compromise. And there's something about that I've always had, that nature to concede for the betterment of what's the partnership. Whether it was a friendship and they wanted to go here and I wanted to go there, I would go there with them instead of where I wanted to go, or to do what I wanted to do, because I was thinking about the friendship or the relationship as a whole. And I saw how much damage that did over time. When I even figured out what the fuck a North and a South Node was, my true North was saying, you know what's best, Emperor. You know what's best. You have the capacity to make those types of decisions, and it will end up being the best for everyone involved. So trust what you know. My feminine aspect is more High Priestess. High Priestess and Emperor together is a very power couple, in my opinion. Emperor and Empress, they're very visceral, they're very seen, they're very public, they're very Michelle and Barack, versus more private couple that would be like the Hermit and the High Priestess. A very quiet, a very internal, a very receded type of wisdom, and coupled them. So the two of those together, you know, really my counterpart would be an Empress Hermit, and I would be an Emperor High Priestess. So whatever. And partner at 12, he and I, we're still friends to this day, because as kids we did that same shit, holding hands, laying up like a couple, but there wasn't any sexual boundaries really crossed. There was no virginity, and you know, it wasn't going to that level, because that's not what the relating process, the soulful process was about. as adults, we reignited, we reunited. And this was right before my first conscious awareness of an awakening. My thyroid really was under attack, and it was goddamn June bug. Anyway, my thyroid was under attack. I need some tissue. Sorry, y'all. Pantona, can I get some tissue? So my thyroid was a little under attack, and I was actually in physical school then, and they said we could do a research paper on anything. I was going to pick my name because I was and I told my daughter this today, you start to awaken when you initially ask that question, why am I here? What is my purpose? Who am I? So those are the questions I had. So I was going to do a paper on auras and what they meant. Thank you. I can see all my mocos on the camera. It's not becoming. Not very becoming at all. So, excuse me for that. So, I ended up settling on the chakras, and when I got to the throat chakra, the first sign of an underactive one was hypothyroidism. And that's exactly what I had just been diagnosed with and had no clue where the fuck it came from, if it was congenital, maybe it was on my paternal line or what have you, because my grandmother had a lot of issues with being obese, over 400 pounds, heart issues, breast cancer, heart disease, breast cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes. It was a lot going on that side, and I didn't know very much about my mother's side, except for the alcoholism that my grandmother had, which I feel is it's in the DNA, but it's more so like a behavioral pattern, because I started to see it within my family as well. So I didn't really feel like, it's more of an entity of addiction, that alcohol based, it's a shadow, so it's not the same to me as like heart disease, how it manifests along the line, or the cancer gene is passed down on the line. It's a little more spiritual, those types of addictions, because they're fueled by entities. But anyway, going back, as an adult, I had already started my journey and all that, reconnected with that partner from when I was 12. He and I had some very heavy karma to amend. He was a past life partner of mine. It was when we broke up, and it was very traumatic. It was very toxic. It was very fucking it was, even trying to recall it, I can't recall it all because I've forgiven so much of it, but I remember that it was a very deep and very dark and very isolated place I ended up being in. And I was wandering around Barnes & Noble by myself. At this point, I had been off of social media for a week. I hadn't texted anybody for a week. He and I had broken contact. So, and that's who I was speaking to on a regular basis every day, besides the people in my home. But I even drowned them out and went in total hermit mode. And walking through Barnes & Noble was the first time I actually physically audibly heard the voice. And it said, "Get it." And I was looking actually at the Rider-Waite. And I was like, get it. The way I grew up in the church, I stepped away from the church when I was like 9 or 10 years old. But mind you, I was going to church on my own, having a shuttle come pick me up. And I decided when I stepped into that place, I didn't want to go to the Sunday school. You're not sending me there. I need to be in there with all the grown folks getting the message. But it was on this particular day, I went and I saw the ATMs in the lobby. blue velvet, draped everywhere. And I was like, what is this? And everybody was looking at me because I was a kid trying to enter the church. I had no one with me. And they, more or less, their attitude towards me kind of casted me out. But also, I knew that that was in an environment that was not right now. Why is he calling me while I'm in the middle of a video? And I know you're gonna see this. You always doing that shit and you don't even realize it. While I'm in the middle of recording, you do it so very often. I'm not even gonna call your name, but you know who the hell you are. Anyway, so I left. I was like, this is not the place for me. Growing up that way, I knew what I believed in. And it couldn't be taught, not that way. I saw that it wasn't supposed to be that way. So I left and I did not return. Any other time I've tried to go to church and be open-minded about it, it was always some BS. Got baptized at the age of 5 and I was very aware of what I was doing and why I was doing it. I was told again in my teenage years, 14, 15 years old, that I need to get it done again in order for it to be valid. Because I was at a new church, I needed to be baptized at their church. Completely disrespected me. They would not let me dance on the praise team because I did not meet all the members of their church and get approved for membership. I was completely appalled. My aunt was so heavy in the church that she would go, and all the girls, she had 5 girls, they would go and this and that, and her parents would go. They were all part of the same church. And I said, leave me at home. I'm not going. I'm not welcome there. How you can discredit my praise and my presence because you think I need your approval. Completely fucked up that type of branch of study for me, I'll say. Because I wasn't going there to hang on every word of the minister. I was going there for something far more in-depth on a personal level. So picking up a tarot deck is completely frowned upon. You know, my mom grew up Catholic. She, you know, came over to the Christianity faith and even left that behind. But we don't mess with tarot. We're open-minded and we're spiritual, but that's not something we openly did amongst each other. It's something I see every one of my siblings venture into on their own, but it was never something that we did collectively or openly as a family. My brother's got his own spiritual stuff going on, and it wasn't until I openly showed my own part of my spirituality and my practice and my cards and my crystals that he showed me that he has already been exposed to it in his own findings. My sisters do their own thing and have their own way of tapping into those resources. But you know, we all have our own path. We're not doing them together. So I get in tune. You know, it's so quiet, so silent finally that I can actually hear. By this time I had already amended what was going on with my throat chakra through meditation. And that's when I first realized how powerful the mind was. Because I'd be damned if you tell me I'm going to be on medication for the rest of my life and that I won't lead a normal life and I could die from this. Who the fuck do you think you are to tell me I'm going to die from some shit and not give me any other place to look or no other second, you know, no second opinion or anything. At the time I was 23 years old, like with a 3-year-old, fucking afraid that I had to talk to her about death and what happens and what to do and how to call 911. I had to tell her this shit because I had lost my mom at 14 So the real notion, and my mom lost her mom when she was 15, so the real notion of my child witnessing me pass the way that my mother had witnessed her mom pass and I had witnessed my mom pass, it was something I felt like at one point was to come to pass. And I had that talk with her, and that's kind of why I raised her the way that I did, to be self-sufficient, to take care of herself, to learn how to cook, and to, wash her clothes, and hygiene, and how to clean a home, and how to maintain and do things for herself. So she was not solely dependent on me and not solely dependent on anyone else. And even when it comes to like her cycle and things like that, I'm getting a little off topic, but I still think it's important because no one taught me how to be a woman. What I learned was from observing others, making my own mistakes, and formulating my own desires and wishes, and not having any rules or boundaries or do's and don'ts to live by. My sisters were older than me by 7 and 14 years. They really weren't trying to go backwards, and they're still trying to figure it out. At those times, they figured I just knew, or that it was common sense, but no one had ever mentored me, took me under their wing, or given me any sound teaching or advice, not even about my own body. So everything that I know, I've learned, I've researched, I've made it my business to find out who I am when it comes to womanhood. And motherhood was, I had some assistance from my sister, but it was a lot of trial and error, period. No contest, there's no objection to that. That it just is what it is. No harm, no foul. So dealing with that breakup, we're very private people. So even me speaking publicly on this platform or whatever platform I speak on, it's a lot of, oh wow, she said that, because my family doesn't talk about certain things. They keep everything quiet. All you see is what you're shown. That's it. No one needs to know. And that's a very, we grew up with a Pisces mom. That's a very high priestess thing, and that's cool. That's fine. But I also feel that there's a lot of that going on to the detriment of people who could actually utilize the lesson. You have a lot of people that are just onlookers, and when you purposely hold on so tightly to truth and don't let it out, people will seek it. People will be attracted to the mystery that is you, the skeletons they know that are there. They will come trying to dig for them. But when you are transparent, there is nothing that they can take from you. There is no damage that they can do to you, because they can't even touch you. That's what I've come to know. And Eminem did it best, I guess. You know what I mean? He put his shit so up front and in your face. It was like, there is nothing you can do to me, because I'll be the first to tell you my fuck up. And what? Everybody admired him for it, but they don't understand how powerful and how bold and how strong that really is. It's neither here nor there. Got into the tarot, and I was, at the time, he had another partner, my ex, from when I was 12. He came back around, and I tried to use the tarot, right, to dig for information. And my grandfather, who I've never met, I never physically heard his voice, but I knew it was him. Ace of Swords came out, and he said, cut it out. And the voice was so fucking deep. I was by myself. I just had chills, goosebumps. I was afraid, but I was more so felt like I was caught, like I had been scolded. That was my first lesson in knowing the ethics of tarot without having to read it in a book or none of that shit. I used the little booklet maybe 3 times that came with it to try to understand what the cards meant. And to this day, I can't verbatim really quote what the cards mean. I can give you some general meanings for them, but it really depends on what context they're coming in, because they speak to me individually. They have their own story. I started to have the past life dreams around this time, and I really started to get more insight. I started to get led towards numerology and the divine triangle, the Saturn return. This is when information started to be downloaded so quickly, because I had the space, I had the opportunity, I had the clear thought, because I didn't have the toxicity of being in that relationship in my everyday presence. So I really separated myself from that karma, though the cycle was not over. It was still, trying to be reoccurring, and it dragged out. It felt like I was getting divorced from this motherfucker, and I love him. I still love him. I talk to him. He's a friend of mine, but he is not. He is. He's a good friend of mine. Can't really speak much else. Not completely knowing his complete role in my life, it would be a fallacy to say that he is no longer part of it in any way, shape, or form. That'd just be speaking from a space of unknowing, and I can't honestly do that. He's a good friend of mine, to put it plainly. But he's a Taurus, like my dad. I started to attract all these fucking Taurus men around the same time, and the past life trademark was the tattoo on the neck that says death before dishonor. One had it here, one had it here, and it was like, it was related to a way that I died dealing with them. And it took me maybe 3 years to wrap up that cycle. 2.5, 3 years. And it was crazy, because I had dated, someone else. There was some little relationships in between. Nothing serious, nothing past life related. And I see that they really had no weight. They were just skimming the surface, and they were Cancerians. Cancer energy, I see very prevalent. They were on the surface. It was light. It wasn't too deep. It was a lot of emotional unavailability, and I think at that time that's all I could attract, because I wasn't really working in the depths of me just yet. It was a lot of it wasn't until the Pisces energy came the fuck in, which aligns with my mom's energy, and it was Pisces, 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 Pisces after Taurus, 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 Taurus. So this is what